The morning I found those divorce papers on my kitchen counter, I had just finished my third cup of coffee and was mentally preparing for what I thought would be the biggest day of my professional life. Funny how life works sometimes, isn't it? You think you know exactly where you're headed, and then suddenly everything shifts beneath your feet like sand at the beach. My name is Sarah, and at 32 years old, I thought I had my life pretty well figured out. 5 years of marriage to Marcus, a successful real estate broker who drove a Tesla and wore designer suits to Sunday brunch. We had the perfect house in Austin, Texas, with the white picket fence and everything. From the outside, we probably looked like one of those couples you see in lifestyle magazines. You know the ones I mean. But that morning, as I stood there reading those papers with my coffee getting cold in my hand, I saw words that made my stomach drop. Marcus had written, and I'm quoting here because these words are burned into my memory, that I had shown consistent financial incompetence and an inability to contribute meaningfully to our marriage. Can you imagine? After everything we'd been through together, that's how he summed up our life. Financial incompetence, like I was some kind of failed investment he needed to write off his taxes. What Marcus didn't know, what he'd never bothered to ask about in all his rush to close his next big deal, was that I'd been quietly building something incredible. For the past 3 years, while he was out schmoozing clients and talking about square footage and property values, I'd been developing a software company from our spare bedroom. It started as just an idea, really. I'd always been good with computers, had studied computer science in college before Marcus convinced me that tech was a man's world and I'd be happier in something more suitable for a woman. I remember the exact moment the idea came to me. I was sitting in a coffee shop, listening to two small business owners complaining about how hard it was to understand their market data. They were drowning in numbers but had no idea what any of it meant. That's when it clicked. What if there was software that could take all that confusing data and turn it into simple, actionable insights? Not just for big corporations with massive budgets, but for regular people trying to make their dreams work. So I started coding. Late at night, after Marcus had gone to bed. Early in the morning before he woke up. During the long afternoons when he thought I was at the gym or getting my nails done, I taught myself new programming languages from YouTube videos and online courses. I reached out to mentors through LinkedIn, always careful to schedule calls when Marcus wouldn't be home. It wasn't that I was hiding it from him exactly, but every time I'd tried to share my excitement about the project, he'd pat me on the head like I was a child showing him a finger painting and say something like, "That's nice, honey, but leave the business stuff to me." 3 years of work. 3 years of perfecting algorithms, testing with beta users, refining the interface until it was so simple that my 70-year-old neighbor could use it. 3 years of building relationships with potential clients, attending virtual conferences while Marcus thought I was watching Netflix, writing code until my eyes burned and my fingers ached. And through it all, I never once heard a word of encouragement from the man who was supposed to be my partner. The company grew slowly at first. My first client was actually that same coffee shop where I'd gotten the idea. The owner, Maria, a wonderful woman who'd immigrated from Mexico 20 years ago and built her business from nothing. She believed in me when no one else did. She let me test my software with her sales data, gave me feedback, introduced me to other small business owners. Within 6 months, I had 10 clients. Within a year, 50. By year 3, we had over 200 businesses using our platform, and that's when the big tech companies started to notice. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to that morning with the divorce papers. As I stood there, feeling the weight of Marcus's words, my phone buzzed with an email. My lawyer, Jennifer, a brilliant woman who'd been helping me navigate the acquisition talks, had sent me an update. "Everything's on track," she wrote. "The buyers are impressed with your user retention rates. We're looking at a final number around $800,000. $800,000 for my little hobby, as Marcus had called it, for my silly computer project that would never amount to anything. I wanted to laugh, but I also wanted to cry. How had we gotten here? How had the man I'd fallen in love with in college, who used to stay up all night with me talking about our dreams, become someone who couldn't see my worth beyond a bank balance? I heard footsteps on the stairs and quickly folded the divorce papers, sliding them under a magazine. Marcus appeared in the doorway, already dressed in one of his expensive suits, checking his phone like always. He didn't even look at me as he grabbed his travel mug and headed for the door. "I'll be late tonight," he said, still scrolling. "Don't wait up." "Marcus," I called after him, and something in my voice made him pause. For just a moment, I considered telling him everything, about the company, about the acquisition, about how wrong he was. But then I saw the impatience in his eyes, the way his foot was already turned toward the door, and I knew it wouldn't matter. Some people only see what they want to see. "Never mind," I said softly. "Have a good day." After he left, I sat at my kitchen table and really thought about our marriage. When had it started to go wrong? Was it when he got his real estate license and suddenly every conversation became about commissions and investments? Was it when I stopped being Sarah, his wife, and became Sarah, the disappointment, the woman who couldn't contribute financially to our lifestyle? Or was it earlier than that, in those subtle moments when he'd steer me away from tech conversations at parties or suggest I'd be happier in a book club than a coding boot camp? My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Emma, my assistant. I'd hired her 6 months ago when the company had grown too big for me to handle alone. She was 25, ambitious, always perfectly put together in a way I'd never quite mastered. Marcus had actually been the one to suggest I hire her. Said I needed help staying organised. At the time, I'd been grateful for his support. It was one of the few times he'd shown interest in my work. "Sarah!" "Good morning." Emma's voice was unusually bright, even for her. "I just wanted to confirm our meeting with the acquisition team is still on for this afternoon?" "Yes, 3 o'clock, I confirmed, noticing something odd in her tone. "Emma, is everything okay?" "Oh, everything's perfect," she gushed. "Actually, I wanted to thank you. These past 6 months have been so educational. I've learned so much about business and other things." Other things. The way she said it made something twist in my stomach. I thought about all the times lately when Emma had been unavailable. Long lunches that stretched into the afternoon. Leaving early for appointments she was vague about. The new designer clothes that seemed beyond what I was paying her. The way she'd been asking detailed questions about our company valuation, questions that went beyond normal assistant curiosity. "I'm glad you're learning," I said carefully. "Emma, I need to go, but we'll talk more this afternoon." After I hung up, I sat in my quiet kitchen and let the pieces fall into place. The late nights Marcus had been working, Emma's mysterious appointments, the way she'd laughed a little too loud at his jokes when he'd stopped by the office. The new bracelet she had been wearing last week, sapphires surrounded by diamonds, exactly like the one Marcus had given me for our anniversary 3 years ago. I wasn't naive. I'd just been too focused on building my company to see what was right in front of me. You know what the funny thing is? I wasn't even angry, not really. I was disappointed, sure, hurt, absolutely, but mostly I felt free, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even know was there, and suddenly someone had lifted it off my shoulders. Marcus wanted a divorce because he thought I was financially worthless. Fine, let him think that. Let him ride off into the sunset with Emma and her questions about company valuations. I had bigger things to focus on. That afternoon, I met with the acquisition team in downtown Austin. The building was one of those gleaming glass towers that seemed to touch the sky, the kind of place Marcus would have loved to have listings in. Jennifer sat beside me, cool and professional in her navy suit, while across from us sat 3 executives from Technova, one of the biggest software companies in the country. Ms. Morrison, the lead executive David Chen, smiled warmly at me. "We've been following your company's growth for the past year. What you've built is exactly what the market needs. Your user engagement rates are phenomenal." We talked for 2 hours about the future of the company, about how they wanted to keep me on as the lead developer, about their plans to scale the technology globally. They saw the potential Marcus had never bothered to look for. They valued what I'd built, not just in dollars but in impact. By the time we finished, the sun was setting over Austin, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. 800,000, David confirmed as we shook hands. "We'll have the final paperwork ready by Friday. Congratulations, Sarah." You've built something special. As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Can't make it back to the office today. Personal emergency. See you tomorrow. I almost laughed. Personal emergency. Is that what we were calling it now? I drove home slowly, taking the long way through the hill country. The bluebonnets were just starting to bloom, carpeting the roadsides in purple. I thought about calling my mother, telling her everything, but I wasn't ready yet. I needed to sit with this moment to feel the weight of what was happening. My marriage was ending, my company was selling, my entire life was about to change. And the strangest part was that I felt more like myself than I had in years. When I got home, Marcus's car wasn't in the driveway. No surprise there. I made myself a simple dinner, salad and grilled chicken, and ate it on the back porch watching the sunset. Our neighbour's cat, a fat tabby named Muffin, wandered over and curled up at my feet. At least somebody wanted my company. I thought about the first time Marcus and I had looked at this house. We'd been so young, so sure we knew exactly how our lives would unfold. He'd talked about filling the bedrooms with children, about summer barbecues with friends, about growing old together on this very porch. When had that dream died? Or had it ever really been our dream? Or just his dream that I'd agreed to share? My laptop sat on the table next to me and I opened it to check our software dashboard. 212 active clients. Over 1 million data points processed this month. Hundreds of small business owners making better decisions because of something I'd built. This was my dream, I realized. Not the house or the husband or the life that looked perfect from the outside. This work, this impact, this feeling of creating something that mattered. The next day, I went to the office early. It was a small space in a converted warehouse in East Austin. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Well, technically it would be Technova's soon, but the work would continue. The impact would grow. I started backing up files and organizing documents for the transition, trying to stay focused on the task at hand and not think about what Marcus might be doing or where he'd slept last night. Around 10, Emma breezed in wearing a new dress and sunglasses she didn't take off until she reached her desk. Sorry about yesterday, she said without looking at me. I had a migraine. No problem, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Actually, Emma, I need to talk to you about some organizational changes. Her head snapped up, suddenly alert. Organizational changes? Yes. With the company growing, we're restructuring some positions. I'll need you to transfer all your access credentials to the new security system by end of day, standard procedure for the transition. I watched her face carefully and saw the flicker of panic she tried to hide. Of course, she said slowly. Am I? Your position is secure for now, I said, which was technically true. She'd be someone else's problem soon enough. I just need to ensure all our data is properly protected during the transition period. I'm sure you understand. She nodded quickly and I could almost see the wheels turning in her head. What had she and Marcus been planning? Had she been feeding him information about the company? The thought made me sick, but I pushed it aside. Stay professional, I told myself. Stay focused. The rest of the week passed in a blur of meetings and paperwork. Jennifer handled the divorce proceedings with the same cool efficiency she brought to the acquisition deal. Texas was a community property state, she explained, but since the company had been started after our marriage and Marcus had never contributed to it, financially or otherwise, he had no claim to the sale proceeds. His own words in the divorce filing, calling me financially incompetent, would actually work in my favor. He can't claim community property in something he says you were incompetent to create, Jennifer said with a satisfied smile. His ego just saved you $400,000. Thursday night, I was working late at the office when I heard a key in the lock. Only 3 people had keys. Me, Emma, and the building maintenance supervisor. My heart started racing as the door opened and Marcus walked in, using Emma's key. Sarah? He looked surprised to see me, which was rich considering it was my office. I thought you'd be home. Clearly, I said, saving my work and closing my laptop. What are you doing here, Marcus? He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Emma left some personal items. She asked me to pick them up. At 9 o'clock at night? From my office? I stood up, crossing my arms. Come on, Marcus, we've been married for 5 years. Don't insult my intelligence. Something flashed across his face, anger maybe, or frustration. Fine. You want honesty? Emma told me about the meetings you've been having, about the potential sale. Don't you think I have a right to know if my wife is making major financial decisions? There it was, the real reason for the late-night visit. Emma had been feeding him information, and now they were worried about what they might be missing out on. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Your wife? I repeated softly. I believe you filed papers stating I'm financially incompetent. Why would you want someone incompetent making decisions about your assets? His jaw clenched. Don't be clever, Sarah. If you're selling the company, that affects both of us. Community property means... Means what exactly? I interrupted. That you get half of something you called my silly little project? That you're entitled to profit from work you belittled and dismissed? Or are you just worried that your financially incompetent wife might not need you anymore? For a moment, we just stared at each other across the office. In the harsh fluorescent light, I could see lines around his eyes I'd never noticed before. A hardness to his mouth that didn't match my memories of the boy who'd written me poetry in college. I'm trying to protect you, he said finally. You don't understand how business really works. These tech companies, they'll lowball you, take advantage of your inexperience. You need me to negotiate for you. I laughed. I couldn't help it. The sound echoed in the empty office and Marcus's face darkened. What's so funny? You are, I said simply. After all this time, you still don't see it. You still don't see me. I built this company, Marcus. Me. Not you, not anyone else. I negotiated contracts, managed developers, created algorithms you couldn't understand if I explained them for a year. And I did it all while you were telling anyone who'd listen that your wife couldn't balance a checkbook. That's not... He started, but I held up my hand. Please leave. And leave Emma's key on the desk. She won't be needing it anymore. He stood there for another moment, and I saw something shift in his expression. Maybe he was finally seeing me. Really seeing me. For the first time in years. Or maybe he was just calculating what this might cost him. With Marcus, it was hard to tell the difference anymore. After he left, I sat in my empty office and cried. Not for my marriage or for what we'd lost, but for the girl I'd been who'd believed she needed someone else's approval to be valuable. That girl who'd made herself smaller to fit into someone else's idea of what a wife should be. She deserved those tears. Friday morning came bright and clear, one of those perfect Austin spring days that makes you grateful to be alive. I dressed carefully, choosing a simple black dress and the pearl necklace my grandmother had left me, not for Marcus or for the executives at Technova, but for me, for the woman I was becoming. The signing took place in a conference room with views of Lady Bird Lake. As I wrote my name on document after document, officially transferring ownership of my company, I felt a sense of completion. Not an ending, but a graduation of sorts. I'd built something from nothing, and now it would grow beyond what I could achieve alone. Congratulations, Sarah, David Chen said as we finished. We're excited to have you leading the development team. This is just the beginning. As I was leaving the building, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Honey, just saw the strangest thing. Emma resigned from your company via email, and Marcus called asking if I knew any good lawyers. Is everything okay? I smiled, typing back quickly. Everything's perfect, Mom. I'll call you tonight with some news. The weekend passed quietly. Marcus had cleared out his things while I was at the signing, leaving gaps in the house that felt more like possibilities than losses. I spent Saturday rearranging furniture, filling those spaces with things that were purely mine. The quilting frame my grandmother had used, which Marcus had banished to the garage because it didn't match our decor. Boxes of programming books I'd hidden in the guest room closet. Photos from tech conferences where I'd won awards he'd never asked about. Sunday morning, I was enjoying coffee on the porch when my neighbour Janet walked over. She was in her 60s, retired from running her own accounting firm, and had become something of a mentor to me over the years. Heard Marcus moved out, she said without preamble, settling into the chair beside me. also heard Emma's been telling people she's engaged to a very successful real estate developer. Funny how quick that happened. Hilarious, I agreed, passing her the coffee pot. You don't seem too broken up about it, Janet observed. I thought about how to answer that. You know what I realized? I've been mourning my marriage for years. The actual ending is just paperwork. She nodded sagely. I left my first husband in '82. Best decision I ever made. Went back to school, started my firm, met Robert. Sometimes the life you're meant to live is hiding behind the life you think you're supposed to want. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the neighborhood wake up. Kids riding bikes, couples walking dogs, normal life continuing all around us. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, meetings with the Technova team, planning sessions for scaling the software, the actual work of building something bigger than what I'd managed alone. But for now, this moment of peace was enough. Monday arrived with a flurry of activity. The tech news sites had picked up the story of the acquisition, and my phone wouldn't stop buzzing with congratulations from other entrepreneurs, offers from headhunters, interview requests from podcasters who wanted to hear about my journey. I ignored most of them, focusing on the team meeting scheduled for that afternoon. Walking into our little office, I found my 5 employees huddled around someone's laptop, whispering excitedly. They jumped apart when they saw me trying to look innocent. Okay, what's going on? I asked, though I had a pretty good idea. Miguel, my lead developer, a brilliant coder who'd been with me since the early days, cleared his throat. We just saw the news about the acquisition. Sarah, why didn't you tell us? I looked at their faces, saw the mix of excitement and worry, and realized I'd been so caught up in my personal drama that I'd forgotten how this would affect them. These people who'd believed in my vision, who'd worked long hours for startup wages, who'd trusted me with their careers. I'm sorry, I said honestly. I wanted to make sure everything was finalized before I said anything, but you're right. I should have brought you in sooner. Let's go to the conference room. I'll tell you everything. For the next hour, I laid out the whole picture. The acquisition terms, the retention bonuses I'd negotiated for each of them, the growth plans that would mean new opportunities and challenges. I watched their faces transform from worry to relief to genuine excitement. So we're all keeping our jobs? Asked Anna, our junior developer who'd joined us fresh out of boot camp. Not just keeping them, I assured her. With Technova's resources, we'll be able to hire more people, tackle bigger projects. Anna, remember that healthcare data integration you proposed? We can actually build it now. The meeting turned into an impromptu celebration. Someone ordered pizza. Someone else brought out a bottle of champagne they'd been saving for a special occasion. As I watched my team laughing and planning, I felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with money. These people, this work, this impact we were making together, that was the real success. Late that afternoon, as the celebration was winding down, Miguel pulled me aside. Sarah, can I ask you something personal? Of course. We heard Emma quit pretty suddenly, and someone said they saw Marcus's Tesla at her apartment complex. Are you okay? I appreciated his concern more than I could express. You know what, Miguel? I'm better than okay. I'm free. He smiled and squeezed my shoulder. Good. You deserve better than someone who can't see how amazing you are. We all knew Marcus never appreciated what you were building here. It was a simple statement, but it hit me hard. They'd known. My team had watched me struggle with Marcus's dismissiveness, had seen more than I'd realized. And they'd stuck by me anyway, believing in the vision even when my own husband couldn't. The next few weeks flew by in a whirlwind of transitions. The Technova team was professional and respectful, genuinely interested in preserving what made our software special while providing resources to make it better. I threw myself into the work, grateful for the distraction from the quiet evenings in my too-big house. The divorce proceedings moved forward with surprising speed. Marcus, perhaps realizing he had no legal claim to the acquisition money, didn't contest the terms. Through the lawyer grapevine, I heard he was telling people he'd generously agreed to let me keep my little windfall so I could support myself. Let him tell whatever story helped him sleep at night. I had more important things to focus on. One evening, about a month after the acquisition, I was debugging code when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered, "Sarah, it's Emma." I sat back in my chair, surprised. "Emma, this is unexpected." I know, I wanted to apologize. For everything. She sounded younger than I remembered, uncertain. I got caught up in something I shouldn't have. Marcus made it all sound so different from how it really was. Different how? I asked, genuinely curious. He said you didn't appreciate him, that you were obsessed with your computer stuff and ignored your marriage. He said the company was really his idea and you'd shut him out of it. I believed him because I wanted to. Her voice dropped. I thought I was so sophisticated, you know? Secretary having an affair with the boss's husband, like something out of a movie. But now I realize I was just another cliché. I could have been angry, could have told her exactly what I thought of her ethics and choices. But what was the point? She was 25 and learning hard lessons. We all had to learn them sometime. What happened, Emma? Why are you calling me now? She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. He left me. The moment he found out the divorce settlement didn't include any of your company money, he started pulling away. Last week he told me he'd made a mistake, that he needed to focus on his career. I saw him at a restaurant yesterday with Melissa from his office. She's 23 and her father owns commercial properties all over Texas. I'm sorry, I said, and found that I meant it. Not sorry for the situation, but sorry that another young woman was learning the hard way that men like Marcus only valued what they could use. Don't be, Emma said quickly. I deserved it. I wanted you to know that I see it now. What you built, what you accomplished, it's incredible. And Marcus is an idiot for not recognizing it. You're going to do amazing things, Sarah. You already have. After we hung up, I sat in my office thinking about second chances and hard lessons. Emma would be fine. She was smart and ambitious, just pointed in the wrong direction for a while. Maybe this would help her find a better path. As spring turned to summer, the integration with Technova hit its stride. We hired 10 new developers, expanded our office space, and started rolling out features I'd only dreamed about before. The healthcare initiative Anna had proposed became our flagship project, helping small clinics manage patient data more effectively. We were making a real difference, and the work consumed me in the best possible way. I started dating again, tentatively at first. Coffee with a fellow entrepreneur I met at a conference. Dinner with a teacher from my yoga class who made me laugh until my sides hurt. Nothing serious, just the slow process of remembering who I was outside of being Marcus's wife. It felt like learning to breathe again after holding my breath for years. One hot July evening, I was leaving the office when I saw Marcus's Tesla in the parking lot. He was leaning against it, looking at his phone as always. For a moment, I considered walking past without acknowledging him, but something made me stop. Marcus! He looked up, and I was struck by how tired he seemed. The perpetual confidence was gone, replaced by something harder to define. Sarah, you look good. Thanks. What are you doing here? He pocketed his phone, running a hand through his hair in a gesture I remembered from when we were young, and he was nervous about exams. I heard about what you're doing with the healthcare project. My mother's clinic is actually using your software now. She won't shut up about how it's transformed their practice. I'm glad it's helping, I said simply. 800,000, he said suddenly. That's what you sold for, right? I looked up the public filing. Around that, yes. He shook his head slowly. I had no idea. All those nights you were working, I thought you were just playing around, wasting time. I know what you thought, I said gently. You made it very clear. I was an idiot. The words came out in a rush. A complete idiot. I threw away our marriage for what? Emma's gone, took up with some cryptocurrency guy who promised her the moon. My business is struggling because I spent so much time chasing after her instead of focusing on my clients. And you're changing the world. I looked at this man I'd once loved so desperately and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a sort of distant compassion for someone who'd lost his way. Marcus, we wanted different things. We became different people. That's not all your fault. Isn't it? He laughed bitterly. I remember when you first told me about your idea. You were so excited, talking about algorithms and data analysis. And what did I say? That you should focus on making our home beautiful instead. God, Sarah, how did you stand me? I loved you, I said simply. And for a while that was enough. But love isn't enough. If it requires making yourself smaller to fit into someone else's life, he nodded slowly, understanding finally dawning in his eyes. I hope you find someone who sees you, really sees you. Someone who celebrates your victories instead of feeling threatened by them. Thank you, Marcus. I hope you find what you're looking for too. As I drove away, watching him shrink in my rearview mirror, I felt the last ties to my old life gently break. It wasn't dramatic or painful, just a quiet recognition that this chapter was truly closed. The next morning brought a new challenge. David Chen called with news that a competitor was claiming our core algorithm infringed on their patent. It was nonsense. I had documentation proving I'd developed everything independently, but it would mean lawyers and depositions and all the exhausting defense of what I'd built. Don't worry, David assured me. Technova has an excellent legal team. This is just someone trying to cash in on your success. We see it all the time. And so began a new education in the less glamorous side of success. Hours spent in conference rooms going over code line by line, boxes of documentation from my early development days. The competitor even tried to claim that since Marcus had been my husband during development, maybe he'd contributed to the algorithm. That was shut down quickly when Marcus himself provided an affidavit stating he'd had no involvement whatsoever in the technical development, had never even understood what the software did. Ironic, isn't it? Jennifer commented after reading his statement. His dismissiveness of your work is now legally protecting it. Through it all, the work continued. We launched in 3 new states, partnered with a major hospital system, won an innovation award from the Healthcare Technology Association. My team grew to 30 people, each one passionate about using technology to solve real problems. I instituted Friday afternoon learning sessions where anyone could present new ideas or teach others a skill. The office hummed with creative energy. Fall arrived with its blessed relief from the Texas heat. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. The competitor's claims thoroughly debunked. I celebrated by taking my entire team to a ranch outside Austin for a weekend retreat. We rode horses badly, had a barbecue under the stars, and spent hours brainstorming where we wanted to take the company next. You know what I love about this? Anna said as we sat around the campfire. A year ago, I was just hoping to find any job in tech. Now I'm part of something that actually matters. My code is helping doctors save lives. How cool is that? Murmurs of agreement rose from the group. These people, I realized, were my chosen family now. We'd built something together that none of us could have achieved alone. As winter approached, I decided to sell the house. It was too big for just me, too full of memories that no longer fit who I was becoming. I found a lovely condo downtown, walking distance from the office, with huge windows that let in the morning light and a small balcony where I could drink my coffee and watch the city wake up. The day I moved, Janet came over with a bottle of wine and helped me pack the last boxes. You know, she said, wrapping glasses in newspaper. I've watched you transform this past year. It's like you were a butterfly trying to be a caterpillar, and finally you just said forget it and spread your wings. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me, I told her, meaning it. Well, it's true. Some of us are meant to fly, honey. The trick is finding the courage to jump off the branch. On a cold December morning, almost exactly a year after I'd found those divorce papers, I stood in front of 200 healthcare professionals presenting our latest innovation. The software could now predict patient complications with 87% accuracy, allowing early intervention that had already saved dozens of lives. As I explained the technology, fielding questions from doctors and administrators, I felt completely in my element. Afterwards, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 22, fresh out of college by the look of her. "Ms. Morrison? I'm Katie. I just wanted to say, you're kind of my hero. I'm studying computer science, and everyone keeps telling me to go into finance or consulting instead, that tech is too hard for women. But seeing what you've built, it makes me believe I can do it too." I thought about my younger self, the girl who'd almost given up on her dreams because someone told her they weren't appropriate. "You can absolutely do it," I told Katie firmly. "Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. The world needs what you have to offer." She beamed and asked for a selfie, which I happily provided. As she walked away, clutching her phone like a treasure, David Chen appeared at my elbow. "Nice presentation," he said. "The board is extremely pleased with our division's growth. In fact, they've approved your proposal for the AI Research Lab. Congratulations, Director Morrison." Director Morrison. It had a nice ring to it. "Thank you, David. When do we start?" "January 2nd. Think you can build us something revolutionary?" I thought about everything I'd built so far, everything I'd overcome, everything still waiting to be discovered. "Yes," I said with complete confidence. "I know I can." The year ended with our company holiday party, held at a beautiful venue overlooking the lake. My team had grown to 50 people, each one vital to our success. As I stood to give a toast, looking out at their faces, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "A year ago," I began, "someone told me I was financially incompetent and unable to contribute meaningfully. That person was wrong, but not because of the money we've made or the acquisition or any of the external markers of success. They were wrong because they couldn't see what we've built here together. The lives we've touched, the problems we've solved, the difference we've made. That's our real contribution, and it's meaningful beyond measure." The room erupted in applause, and Miguel shouted, "To Sarah, who showed us all what's possible." "To all of us," I corrected, raising my glass higher, "to the dreamers and builders and believers. To those who see problems and create solutions. To those who refuse to be made smaller by other people's limitations. This is just the beginning." As midnight approached on New Year's Eve, I stood on my balcony looking out at the Austin skyline. Fireworks were starting to bloom across the city. Celebrations of endings and beginnings. My phone buzzed with messages from friends and family, from team members and industry colleagues, from people whose lives had been touched by our work. One message stood out. It was from Maria, the coffee shop owner who'd been my very first client. "Sarah, mi amor, I wanted you to know that your software helped me identify a problem with my supply chain that was costing me thousands. I fixed it and just had my most profitable year ever. My daughter can go to college now without loans. You changed our lives. Happy New Year, mija." I wiped away tears, the good kind, the kind that come from knowing you've made a real difference. This time last year, I'd been a woman whose husband thought she was worthless, struggling to believe in her own vision. Now I was leading a team that was revolutionizing healthcare technology. The journey hadn't been anything like I'd planned, but it had led me exactly where I needed to be. My phone rang just after midnight. It was my mother calling from Seattle, where she lived with my father. "Happy New Year, sweetheart. Your dad and I just read the article about your company in the Times. We're so proud of you." "Thanks, Mum." I tucked myself into a chair, pulling a blanket around my shoulders against the cool night air. It's been quite a year, I'll say. Divorce, selling your company, that whole mess with Marcus and what's her name. How are you really doing? I thought about it seriously. How was I doing? "I'm good, Mum. Really good. Better than I've been in years, actually." "No regrets about Marcus?" "No," I said honestly. "We weren't right for each other. I just wish I'd seen it sooner instead of trying so hard to be someone I wasn't." "Oh, honey," she sighed. "We all do that sometimes. The important thing is you figured it out. And look what you've accomplished. Your grandmother would be so proud. Remember how she always said you had a head for numbers?" I smiled, thinking of my grandmother who'd run a small business in an era when women weren't supposed to do such things. She'd have loved seeing what computers could do, how they could level playing fields and create opportunities. "So," my mother continued in that tone that meant she was about to pry, "are you seeing anyone?" Mom, what? I'm just asking. You're young, successful, beautiful. Surely there's someone who's caught your eye. I laughed. I'm focusing on work right now. The AI lab is going to be a huge undertaking, but I'm not closed to the possibility. If the right person comes along, someone who sees me as a partner rather than a project to be managed, then maybe. Good girl, just remember the right person will make your life bigger, not smaller. They'll celebrate your wins, not feel threatened by them. After we hung up, I stayed on the balcony watching the city settle into the new year. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to make a difference. But tonight, I was simply grateful. Grateful for the journey that had led me here, for the people who'd believed in me when I was still learning to believe in myself, for the work that gave my life purpose and meaning. A text arrived from an unknown number. Curious, I opened it. Sarah, you probably don't remember me, but I was in your coding boot camp 3 years ago. You helped me debug a program when I was ready to give up. I just got promoted to senior developer at Microsoft. Thank you for showing me it was possible. Happy New Year. I did remember her, actually. Melissa, who'd driven 2 hours each way to attend the boot camp because she couldn't afford to quit her day job. She'd worked harder than anyone else in the class, staying late to practice, asking questions until she understood every concept. Now she was at Microsoft, living her dream. This, I realized, was success. Not the money, or the titles, or the recognition, though those were nice. Success was creating ripples that touched other lives, opening doors for others to walk through, building ladders for those coming behind. It was proving that a woman dismissed as financially incompetent could build something that mattered, and in doing so, show other women what was possible. As the night grew quiet and the celebrations wound down across the city, I made myself a cup of tea and curled up with my laptop. There was code to review for the AI lab, plans to refine, dreams to architect into reality. Some people might have called it sad, spending New Year's night working, but I'd never been happier. My phone buzzed one more time. Katie, the young computer science student from the conference, had posted on LinkedIn. Inspired by Sarah Morrison to keep pursuing tech despite the doubters. Watch out, world, here I come. Hatay. Women in tech. A new year, new dreams. I smiled and liked her post, then added a comment. Can't wait to see what you build, Katie. The world needs your brilliance. Because that was the truth I'd learned this year. The world didn't need me to make myself smaller to fit someone else's vision. It needed me to be fully myself, to build and create and innovate without apology. It needed all of us who'd been told we weren't enough to prove just how wrong that assessment was. As the clock ticked toward dawn, I kept working, losing myself in the elegant logic of code. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably sleeping next to his next conquest, still chasing quick wins and easy money. Emma was reinventing herself again, hopefully into someone with more integrity. But here, in my small corner of the world, fingers flying over keys, building something that would help save lives, I was exactly where I belonged. The girl who'd been labelled financially useless had built something worth nearly $1 million. But more than that, she'd built a life worth living, work worth doing, a future worth chasing. And this was just the beginning. The AI lab would open new frontiers. The team would grow and tackle bigger challenges. Lives would be saved, problems would be solved, barriers would be broken. I saved my work and finally headed to bed as the sun began to paint the sky pink. Tomorrow would be busy, full of meetings and code reviews and strategic planning, but I would meet it with energy and enthusiasm, grateful for every challenge, every opportunity to prove that the only person who gets to decide your worth is you. And I was priceless. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought one last time about those divorce papers that had started everything. Financially incompetent. If only Marcus could see me now. But then again, that was the whole point. He'd never really seen me at all. His loss had become my freedom, his dismissal my motivation, his blindness my chance to shine. Thank you, Marcus, I thought drowsily. Thank you for setting me free to become who I was always meant to be. It wasn't the ending to our story that either of us had imagined, but it was the beginning of something so much better. At least for me. The first Monday of the new year arrived with an energy that seemed to vibrate through the entire office. I arrived early, as had become my habit, but found I wasn't the first one there. Miguel was already at his desk, multiple monitors glowing with code. Couldn't sleep either? I asked, setting a fresh cup of coffee on his desk. He grinned sheepishly. I had an idea about the neural network architecture for the AI lab. I wanted to test something before the meeting. This was why I loved my team. They weren't just employees clocking in and out, analysts. They were true believers, innovators who saw possibilities everywhere. Show me, I said, pulling up a chair. For the next hour, we dove deep into the technical details, debating approaches and sketching out algorithms on the whiteboard. This was my happy place, solving complex problems with people who spoke the same language of logic and possibility. No pretense, no games, just the pure joy of creation. By 9, the office was filling up. The energy was palpable as everyone prepared for our first big planning session of the year. I'd structured it as a democratic process where everyone could contribute ideas, regardless of their position. The junior developers had just as much voice as the senior architects. Before we start, I announced as everyone gathered in our expanded conference room, I want to share something. This weekend, I received an email from a hospital in rural Texas. They've been using our software for 6 months, and they wanted us to know that they've reduced their emergency room wait times by 30% and caught 3 cases of early-stage cancer that might have been missed otherwise. The room erupted in cheers. Anna actually had tears in her eyes. This is why we do this, she said. This is why the long hours and the debugging sessions and the endless testing matter. Exactly, I agreed. So as we plan for this year, as we build this AI lab, remember that every line of code we write has the potential to save lives. Let's make them count. The brainstorming session that followed was unlike anything I'd experienced in the corporate world. Ideas flew fast and furious. What if we could predict epidemic outbreaks before they spread? Could we create an AI that helped doctors in developing countries diagnose rare diseases? What about mental health applications, using pattern recognition to identify when patients might be struggling before they reached crisis? I stood at the whiteboard, frantically trying to capture every idea, watching my team build on each other's concepts. This was what Marcus had never understood. Leadership wasn't about being the smartest person in the room or having all the answers. It was about creating an environment where brilliant people could do their best work, where wild ideas were welcomed and refined rather than dismissed. What if, suggested David, one of our newer hires, we created an open source component, something that smaller clinics could use for free? In my old life, Marcus would have immediately shot down the idea. Why give anything away for free? Where was the profit margin? But I'd learned that sometimes the best business decisions weren't about immediate returns. I love it, I said, adding it to our growing list. What if we made it a community project? Get developers from around the world contributing. The excitement in the room ratcheted up another notch. We weren't just building a product anymore. We were building a movement. The meeting ran 3 hours over schedule, but nobody complained. People ordered lunch to their desks, unwilling to break the creative flow. By the end of the day, we had a roadmap that was ambitious enough to be scary and detailed enough to be achievable. As the team finally dispersed, chattering excitedly about their specific projects, Jennifer appeared in my doorway. My lawyer had become something of a friend over the past year, one of the few people who'd seen me at both my lowest and highest points. Heard you had quite the planning session, she said, settling into a chair. Also heard something else you might find interesting. Oh? I saved my notes and gave her my full attention. Marcus and Emma's investment scheme just imploded spectacularly. Turns out they were promising investors access to your proprietary algorithms. When they couldn't deliver, people started asking hard questions. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. They were using my technology to scam people? Trying to. But here's the interesting part. Emma apparently kept records of everything, including emails where Marcus explicitly planned to use insider information he thought she'd gathered. She's turned state's evidence in exchange for immunity. I thought about all those times Emma had asked seemingly innocent questions about our algorithms, how she'd tried to understand our valuation methods. She'd been gathering intelligence the whole time, thinking she was building a future with Marcus. Instead, she'd been building a case that would eventually destroy him. The FBI will probably want to talk to you, Jennifer continued, just to confirm that neither of them ever had legitimate access to your technology. They didn't, I said firmly. I was always careful about that, even before I suspected anything. Only the core development team has access to the actual algorithms. Jennifer nodded approvingly. Smart. Your paranoia saved you a lot of trouble. Marcus is looking at serious fraud charges. Turns out this wasn't his first attempt at this kind of scheme. He's been selling insider information about various tech companies for years, mostly made up or grossly exaggerated. I thought about the man I'd married, the one who'd written me poetry and promised to support my dreams. When had he become someone who would steal and lie and build his success on deception? Or had he always been that person and I'd just been too in love to see it? Sarah? Jennifer's voice pulled me back. You okay? Yeah, I said slowly. It's just strange, you know. I lived with him for 5 years. Shared a bed, a life, dreams for the future, and I never really knew him at all. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones we see least clearly, she said gently. Don't blame yourself for trusting someone who proved untrustworthy. That's on him, not you. After she left, I sat in my quiet office processing this new information. Marcus wasn't just a dismissive husband who'd undervalued me. He was a criminal who'd tried to profit off my work. The violation felt deeper somehow, more personal. But also, strangely, it validated every decision I'd made to protect my company. My phone rang, interrupting my brooding. It was David Chen. Sarah, I just got out of a board meeting. They're so impressed with your team's proposal that they're doubling the AI lab budget. Also, they want you to present at the global conference in March. You'll be sharing the main stage with some of the biggest names in tech. That's incredible, I breathed, feeling a mix of excitement and terror. Thank you for believing in this vision. Thank you for creating something worth believing in, he replied. Oh, and Sarah? They're fast-tracking your nomination for the Women in Technology Leadership Award. The ceremony is in June. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone. A year ago, I'd been labelled financially useless. Now, I was being nominated for leadership awards and speaking at global conferences. The transformation felt surreal, like I was living someone else's life. But no, this was my life. I'd built it, earned it, fought for it. The weeks that followed blurred together in the best possible way. The AI lab construction began, a state-of-the-art facility that would house both powerful servers and collaborative workspaces. I hired Dr. Rachel Chen, a brilliant AI researcher from MIT, to co-lead the lab with me. She brought theoretical expertise that perfectly complemented my practical experience. I have to tell you, Rachel said during one of our planning sessions, when I heard about this opportunity, I almost didn't apply. Another tech company run by men making promises about changing the world. Then I researched you, read about what you'd built and how you'd built it. A woman who'd been told she was worthless and responded by creating something invaluable. That's someone I want to work with. Her words hit me unexpectedly hard. I'd been so focused on building the technology that I hadn't fully grasped what my story might mean to others. I'm just doing what needs to be done, I said, deflecting the compliment. No, Rachel said firmly. You're showing every woman in tech that we don't have to shrink ourselves to succeed. Do you know how many female students I've mentored who've been told to be less aggressive, less ambitious, less visible? Your visibility matters. That night, I thought about visibility as I prepared for my presentation at the global conference. 3,000 people would be in that audience, plus whoever watched the live stream. The thought terrified me. But Rachel was right. Visibility mattered. If my story could inspire even one woman to keep pushing despite the doubters, it was worth any amount of stage fright. The FBI interview happened on a grey February morning. 2 agents, professional and courteous, asked detailed questions about Marcus and Emma's access to company information. I provided documentation showing our security protocols, access logs that proved neither had ever seen our core technology. "You were remarkably careful," one agent observed, "almost like you suspected something from the beginning." "I learned early in my career that protecting intellectual property is crucial," I said carefully, "especially as a woman in tech. Too many people are ready to claim credit for our work." They nodded knowingly and wrapped up the interview. As they left, one turned back. "For what it's worth, Ms. Morrison, what you've built here is impressive. My daughter is studying computer science because she read about women like you. Keep doing what you're doing." March arrived with Austin's famous wildflowers beginning to bloom. The global conference loomed, and I threw myself into preparation. My presentation would have focused on democratizing healthcare technology, making sophisticated diagnostic tools available to underserved communities. It was a message I believed in passionately, but public speaking had never been my strong suit. "You'll be fine," Miguel assured me during one of my practice runs. "Just remember, you're not trying to impress them. You're sharing something you love with people who want to learn." The night before I flew to San Francisco for the conference, I couldn't sleep. I found myself going through old photos on my laptop, tracing the journey that had led me here. Pictures from the early days of the company, when it was just me and a laptop and a dream. The first team photo with Miguel and 2 other developers who'd taken a chance on an unknown startup. The acquisition signing, my hand shaking as I held the pen. And further back, photos from my marriage. Our wedding day, both of us so young and certain we knew what forever meant. Vacations where Marcus was always on his phone while I stared at the ocean alone. Holiday parties where I stood slightly apart, already becoming invisible in my own life. The signs had been there all along. I'd just been too afraid to see them. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Can't sleep before your big speech? Remember when you were 8 and terrified to present your science project? You threw up on your shoes but still won firstie's place. You've got this, sweetheart." I laughed, remembering that disaster of a presentation. I'd been studying honeybees, fascinated by how they communicated complex information through dance. The other kids had made fun of my enthusiasm, calling me a bee nerd, but the judges had seen someone genuinely passionate about learning and sharing knowledge. Maybe that's all I needed to be tomorrow, that same eager 8-year-old, just with better shoes. The conference center in San Francisco was overwhelming. Thousands of people, dozens of simultaneous sessions, an exhibition hall filled with the latest technology. I felt like a small fish suddenly dropped in the ocean. Then I saw our booth, staffed by Anna and David, demonstrating our software to a crowd of fascinated healthcare professionals. My team, my work, making a difference. The fear receded, replaced by pride. "Sarah Morrison?" A young woman approached hesitantly. "I'm Lisa from TechCrunch. Could we do a quick interview before your presentation?" The interview turned into 3 more, then a podcast recording, then a panel discussion. By the time my main presentation arrived, I'd told our story so many times that the nerves had mostly dissipated. This was just another conversation about something I loved. Standing on that massive stage, looking out at 3,000 faces, I thought about Marcus's words. Financially incompetent, unable to contribute meaningfully. I let those words fuel me rather than diminish me. 2 years ago, I began, my voice steadier than I'd expected. Someone told me I was financially useless. That person was my husband, and he believed it so deeply that he left me for my secretary, convinced she had more to offer. Today, the company he dismissed as my silly hobby is revolutionizing healthcare horse technology. But this isn't a story about revenge or proving someone wrong. It's a story about what happens when we stop letting others define our worth and start building something meaningful. The presentation flowed from there. I showed them our technology, shared success stories from hospitals and clinics, outlined our vision for the AI lab. But more than that, I shared the why behind it all, why every person deserved access to quality healthcare, why technology should be a bridge, not a barrier, why diversity in tech wasn't just a nice ideal, but a business imperative that led to better solutions. The standing ovation caught me off guard. 3,000 people on their feet, applauding not just me, but the work, the vision, the possibility of technology used for genuine good. I spotted Rachel in the front row, tears streaming down her face as she clapped. My team clustered near the stage, cheering louder than anyone. Backstage afterward, the conference organizer found me. "That was extraordinary," she said. "We've had a lot of presentations about AI and healthcare, but yours was different. You made it personal. You made it matter." That night, my team took over a restaurant in the Mission District. We celebrated not just the successful presentation, but everything we'd built together. Stories flowed with the wine, laughter echoed off the walls. These people who'd believed in a vision when it was just scribbles on a whiteboard, who'd worked impossible hours, not for stock options, but for the chance to make a difference. They were my chosen family, my tribe, my validation that success meant so much more than money. To Sarah, Rachel raised her glass, who shows us daily that the best revenge is a life well lived. To all of us, I countered, who prove daily that the future is built by those who refuse to accept limitations. Back in Austin, the conference success translated into tangible results. Partnership requests poured in. Investors who'd ignored us before suddenly wanted meetings. Major hospitals asked about pilot programs. The AI lab construction accelerated, and we started recruiting the brightest minds in machine learning. But success brought new challenges. A competitor tried to poach Miguel with an offer that doubled his salary. A patent troll sued us for vague infractions. Some male engineers we interviewed seemed uncomfortable with the idea of reporting to a woman. Each challenge required a different response, a new lesson in leadership. "Why didn't you take the offer?" I asked Miguel after he'd turned down the competitor. He shrugged. "Money's nice, but it's not everything. Here, I'm building something that matters with people who respect me. There, I'd be employee number 4,000 and something. Plus," he grinned, "I want to see how this story ends." The patent troll situation required more finesse. Jennifer connected me with a specialist who'd dealt with similar cases. "They're counting on you settling to avoid the hassle," she explained. "But if you fight, if you show them you won't be bullied, they usually retreat to easier targets." So we fought. It took months and more money than I wanted to spend, but we won decisively. The victory felt bigger than just our company. It was a statement that innovation wouldn't be held hostage by those who created nothing but lawsuits. The gender dynamics in hiring proved trickier to navigate. I wanted the best people regardless of gender, but I also recognized the importance of building a diverse team. Rachel suggested blind technical assessments, where candidates submitted code samples anonymously. The approach worked beautifully, resulting in hires based purely on skill. Funny how the gender balance improved dramatically when bias couldn't creep into the initial evaluation. Spring in Austin brought both beauty and storms. During a particularly violent thunderstorm that knocked out power to half the city, our backup systems kept our servers running. Hospitals depending on our software never experienced an interruption. It was a small thing, maybe, but it reinforced the responsibility we carried. People's lives literally depended on our reliability. "You know what I realized?" Anna said as we watched the storm from the office windows. "We're not playing at being a tech company anymore. We're infrastructure now. Essential services." She was right. The weight of that responsibility both thrilled and terrified me. Every decision carried more consequences. Every bug could impact patient care. Every innovation could save lives. It was so far from Marcus's world of quick flips and easy money, where the only thing that mattered was the commission check. The Women in Technology Leadership Awards ceremony in June required another trip to San Francisco. This time, my mother insisted on coming. "I'm not missing my daughter getting recognized on a national stage," she declared. "Your father and I are so proud, honey. You've become everything we knew you could be." Sitting in that ballroom, surrounded by extraordinary women who'd built companies, revolutionized industries, broken barriers, I felt like an imposter. Then the presenter read my bio, talked about our healthcare impact, mentioned the hundreds of lives already improved by our technology. The woman she described sounded remarkable. It took a moment to remember she was talking about me. The award goes to Sarah Morrison, whose journey from being dismissed as financially incompetent to building a multi-million-dollar healthcare technology company inspires us all. Her dedication to democratizing healthcare access through AI represents the best of what technology can achieve. Walking to that stage, holding that crystal trophy, I thought about every person who'd believed in me along the way. Maria with her coffee shop, Janet with her wise advice, Jennifer with her legal guidance, Rachel with her brilliant mind, Miguel with his unwavering loyalty, my team with their dedication and trust. Even Emma, in her twisted way, had taught me valuable lessons about protecting what I'd built. In my acceptance speech, I thanked them all, but I also talked about the ones who hadn't believed. "Sometimes our greatest teachers are those who show us who we don't want to be," I said, "who push us to prove not them wrong, but ourselves right." To everyone who's been dismissed, diminished, or told they don't belong, remember that your worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. The summer flew by in a whirlwind of growth. The AI lab officially opened with a ribbon-cutting ceremony, attended by city officials and healthcare leaders. We launched our open-source initiative, making basic diagnostic tools freely available to clinics worldwide. A documentary filmmaker reached out wanting to tell our story as part of a series on women disrupting traditional industries. Through it all, I kept building. Not just code or companies, but relationships, impact, a life filled with purpose. I dated occasionally, meeting interesting people who appreciated my ambition rather than feeling threatened by it. Nothing serious developed, but that was okay. I was learning to be complete on my own, to see partnership as a complement to an already full life, rather than a necessary component. One hot August evening, I was debugging code when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Sarah, this is Marcus." I hadn't heard his voice in over a year. It sounded different, smaller somehow, defeated. "Marcus, this is unexpected." "I know. I'm sorry, I wanted to apologize, properly, for everything." I saved my work and leaned back in my chair. "Okay, I'm listening. I've had a lot of time to think. House arrest gives you that. Emma testified against me. Did you know that? Recorded conversations where I explicitly planned to use information about your company. Information I was so sure she could get because I never believed you were smart enough to protect it." "I heard," I said quietly. "The FBI showed me transcripts. Do you know what the worst part was? Hearing myself dismiss you over and over, calling your work a hobby, a waste of time, laughing with Emma about how clueless you were about your own value. Except you weren't clueless at all, were you? You knew exactly what you were building." "Yes," I said simply. "I did." "I'm going to prison, Sarah. 2 to 5 years, depending on behavior. My assets are frozen, my reputation is destroyed. And the irony is, if I'd just supported you, believed in you, I'd be sharing in your success right now, instead of paying lawyers with borrowed money." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to rage at him, to list every dismissive comment, every moment he'd made me feel small. But what was the point? He was already living the consequences of his choices. "I don't expect forgiveness," he continued. "I just wanted you to know that I see it now, what I threw away, what I failed to recognize. You're brilliant, Sarah. You always were. I was just too insecure to handle being married to someone smarter than me." "Thank you for saying that," I managed. "I hope you find a way to build something better when you get out." "Yeah," he said softly. "Maybe I'll learn to build something real for once. Goodbye, Sarah. Be happy." After he hung up, I sat in my office as the sun set over Austin, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Marcus's call should have felt like vindication, but instead it just felt sad. Two lives that had started together diverged so dramatically. He'd chosen the path of shortcuts and deception. I'd chosen the harder route of genuine creation. The destinations we'd reached reflected those choices. My computer pinged with an alert. A hospital in Kenya had just implemented our open-source diagnostic tool. They'd already identified 2 cases of early-stage tuberculosis that might have been missed otherwise. Lives saved by code I'd written in my spare bedroom while Marcus slept, dismissing my work as playing with computers. Fall arrived with cooler temperatures and bigger ambitions. We partnered with this World Health Organization to expand our reach in developing nations. The AI lab's first major breakthrough came in October, a predictive model for diabetes complications that outperformed existing systems by 30%. Medical journals wanted to publish our findings. Universities wanted to partner on research. The little company that had started as my escape from an unhappy marriage was becoming a force for global change. "You know what's crazy?" Rachel mused during one of our late-night planning sessions. "A year ago, you were just trying to prove you weren't financially useless. Now you're reshaping healthcare delivery worldwide. Talk about exceeding expectations." It was never really about proving Marcus wrong, I reflected. It was about proving myself right, proving that the work mattered, that technology could genuinely help people. The rest just followed. The documentary premiered in December, part of a series called Unlikely Innovators. Watching my story on screen felt surreal. They'd interviewed former colleagues, early clients, even a few competitors. The filmmaker had managed to capture not just the success, but the struggle, the long nights and self-doubt and moments of breakthrough. The most powerful moment came from an interview with a doctor in rural Texas. "This software saved my patient's life," she said simply. A 40-year-old mother of 3 who would have died from undiagnosed heart disease. That's not a statistic. That's a person who gets to watch her children grow up. How do you measure the value of that? You couldn't, I realized. No amount of money could capture the worth of lives saved, suffering prevented, futures preserved. Marcus had measured everything in dollars, in quick returns and profitable exits. But real value, lasting value, couldn't be reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet. As another year drew to a close, I stood before my team at our holiday party. We'd grown to over 100 people, occupied an entire floor of our building, were making plans for international offices. The scared woman who'd found divorce papers on her counter felt like a lifetime ago. "When I started this company," I told them, "I was running from something. A marriage that made me feel small, a life that didn't fit. I thought I was building a business, but what I was really building was myself. Each of you has been part of that construction. You've helped me become someone I'm proud to be, leading work I'm proud to do. So tonight, I don't just want to celebrate our success. I want to celebrate our transformation. All of us who've chosen to build rather than tear down, to create rather than destroy, to lift others rather than climb alone." The party continued late into the night, full of laughter and hope and plans for the future. Miguel unveiled a prototype for our next project, using AI to predict mental health crises before they became emergencies. Anna had been accepted to Stanford's part-time master's program, which we were sponsoring. Rachel's research had attracted a major grant that would fund 5 postdoctoral positions. Success was spreading, lifting everyone it touched. As midnight approached, I found myself on the balcony of our office, looking out at Austin's lights. My phone buzzed with a message from Katie, the young computer science student who'd called me her hero. She'd just accepted her first job as a developer, working on educational technology for underprivileged schools. "Thank you for showing me it was possible," she wrote, "for proving that our dreams matter as much as anyone's. I'm going to make you proud." "You already have," I typed back. "Now go make yourself proud." And that, I realized, was the true measure of success. Not the awards or the acquisitions or the vindication of being right when others said I was wrong. Success was creating ripples that became waves, showing others what was possible, building ladders for those coming behind. It was taking the pain of being dismissed and transforming it into the power to lift others up. Marcus had called me financially useless, unable to contribute meaningfully. He'd been so wrong it was almost funny, but his wrongness had given me the gift of freedom, the push to stop trying to fit into someone else's definition of value. In trying to diminish me, he'd accidentally set me free to become unlimited. The new year beckoned with infinite possibility. More lives to save, more barriers to break, more women to inspire. The AI lab hummed with activity even at this late hour. Brilliant minds working on problems that mattered. My company, my team, my chosen family, all building something that would outlast us all. As fireworks began to explode over Lake Travis, painting the sky in celebration, I raised my champagne glass to the night. To transformation, to resilience, to every woman who'd been told she wasn't enough and chose to become everything. To the futures we were building, one line of code at a time. The girl who'd been labelled financially incompetent had become a leader in healthcare technology. But more than that, she'd become herself. Fully, unapologetically, magnificently herself. And that was worth more than all the acquisitions in the world. My phone rang just after midnight. My mother, calling from their cruise ship, somewhere in the Mediterranean. "Happy New Year, my brilliant daughter. Your dad and I are so proud. You've shown the world what Morrison women are made of." "Thanks, Mum. Happy New Year to you too." "Any resolutions?" she asked. I thought about it. "What did you resolve when you'd already rebuilt your life from the foundation up?" "To keep building," I said finally. "To keep proving that the best response to someone trying to make you small is to become enormous." She laughed. That warm sound that had comforted me through every childhood disappointment and adult heartbreak. That's my girl, always reaching higher. "We love you, sweetheart." After we hung up, I stayed on the balcony, watching the city celebrate below. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably alone, contemplating his upcoming prison sentence. Emma had disappeared completely after testifying, probably starting over somewhere with a new name and hard-learned lessons. But their stories were no longer my concern. I'd written my own ending, and it was just the beginning of something even better. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to make a difference. The AI lab was on the verge of breakthroughs that could revolutionize disease prediction. We were in talks with the Gates Foundation about bringing our technology to Africa and Asia. Universities wanted to create programs based on our open-source initiatives. The ripples were becoming tsunamis of change, but tonight I simply stood in the warm Texas air, champagne in hand, gratitude in heart. The journey from dismissed wife to respected innovator hadn't been easy or straightforward. It had required letting go of who I thought I should be to discover who I actually was. It had meant choosing creation over bitterness, impact over revenge, authenticity over approval. As the celebrations wound down and the city grew quiet, I made my way back inside. There was code to write, problems to solve, a future to build. But first, I paused at my desk, looking at the photo I kept there now. Not of Marcus or our failed marriage, but of my team at our first product launch. Faces full of hope and determination. People who'd believed in a vision when it was just pixels on a screen. That was my real fortune. Not the money or the recognition, but the privilege of working with brilliant people to solve problems that mattered. The joy of watching others grow and succeed. The satisfaction of building something that would help long after I was gone. Marcus had been right about one thing. I had been financially incompetent. Incompetent at his kind of finance. The quick schemes and empty promises. But I'd discovered my own economy, one measured in lives improved and potential unlocked. In that currency, I was wealthy beyond measure. As I finally headed home in the early morning hours, Austin sleeping peacefully around me, I thought about the woman who'd stood in her kitchen holding divorce papers, feeling worthless and lost. I wished I could tell her what was coming. The challenges that would forge her into steel. The successes that would validate her deepest beliefs, the transformation that would turn rejection into rocket fuel. But maybe not knowing had been the gift. Maybe the uncertainty had been necessary, forcing me to choose faith over fear, action over paralysis. Maybe Marcus's dismissal had been the catalyst I'd needed to stop accepting less than I deserved and start building what I was capable of. The condo was quiet when I arrived, my sanctuary in the sky. I poured myself a glass of water and stood at the window, watching the sun begin to paint the horizon pink and gold. Another day. Another chance to build, to grow, to prove that women like me, like us, belonged in every room where decisions were made and futures were shaped. My laptop waited on the kitchen table, full of code that could save lives. My phone held messages from team members excited about new possibilities. My calendar showed meetings with partners eager to expand our impact. This was my life now. Not perfect, but purposeful. Not easy, but meaningful. Not what I'd planned, but better than I'd dared to dream. As exhaustion finally overtook me and I headed to bed, one last thought drifted through my mind. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for showing me who I didn't want to be, for pushing me to discover who I was. Thank you for your dismissal that became my liberation. Thank you for setting me free to build something that mattered, because in the end, that's what this story was really about. Not revenge or vindication, but transformation. Not proving someone wrong, but proving myself right. Not the money or the recognition, but the impact and the inspiration. Not the life I'd lost, but the life I'd built from its ashes. The financially incompetent woman had become financially independent. The dismissed wife had become an industry leader. The silent partner had found her voice and used it to lift others. And this was just the beginning. Tomorrow would bring new code to write, new problems to solve, new futures to build. But tonight, I slept the deep sleep of someone who'd found her purpose, surrounded by the life she'd created, dreaming of all the good still left to do. The best revenge, I'd learned, wasn't revenge at all. It was a life well lived, work well done, potential fully realized. It was becoming everything they said you couldn't be and then reaching back to help others do the same. And that was priceless, absolutely, incomparably, financially priceless.